ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी निति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, welcome everyone. We are discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3rd. So last time we discussed 13th chapter, the pastimes of Varahadev, how Lord Varaha appeared and he killed Hiranyaksha. So Maitreya and Vidura, their discussion is going on. So in this section now, after hearing that Vidura heard from Maitreya that Hiranyaksha was killed by Varahadev. So naturally, Vidurji asks next question. So that forms the beginning of the 14th chapter. And in this chapter, Maitreya will describe how Diti approached her husband in the evening at a wrong time, and they procreated. They had a union, and they begot, children, two children who became the most powerful demons. And how Diti was repentant, and then she was given a benediction that you will have two sons who will be demons, but you will have a grandson who will be a great devotee, that is Prahlad. So that's how this chapter goes on. So Shukdev Goswami, he continues the discussion by describing how Vidura, he was not fully satisfied, and he asks further. So when one is not satisfied, there are few conditions when one is not satisfied. When there is not sufficient food, or when there is no taste, or when you can't relish. That means first is you don't have sufficient food, then you'll be unsatisfied. Or you can't, the food doesn't have taste, then you can't be satisfied. Or third is when then the food has taste, food is available, but you cannot relish it. For example, in a diseased state. But in the case of Vidura, all these three things were there. There was ample amount of Krishna Katha, and it was very, very attractive. And Vidura, he wanted to taste it more. It is very attractive, relishing. So Krishna Katha is very attractive. It has lots of taste, and pure devotees, they have that appetite to relish that, but still the devotees, they want to hear more of Krishna Katha. So that is the nature of pure devotees. They are never satisfied. The glory of Krishna Katha is devotees are satisfied only by hearing Krishna Katha, and they are never satisfied hearing Krishna Katha. They want to hear more and more. Vayam tuna vitripyama uttama shloka vikrame yashrinvatam rasagyanam svadu svadu pade pade. So it is described that, so this is a verse which comes in the first canto, where the sages are telling to Suta Goswami that, oh Suta Goswami, we are not satisfied. Vayam tu na vitripyama. Please keep on reciting the glories of the Lord more and more. Because the more we relish, the more Krishna Katha becomes very, very pleasing, very, very attractive. Swadu, swadu, pade, pade. It becomes very attractive at every moment. So therefore, Vidura, he was not fully satisfied. And he asks further, because nobody can be satisfied hearing Krishna Katha. Ko naam tripye rasavit kathayam mahattamaikanta parayanasya. Who can be satisfied hearing Krishna Katha? Anybody who has relished and heard Krishna Katha and tasted it once, they will never be able to give it up unless he is an animal. That's what Bhagavatam says. Vina naretaram. Only an animal will give up Krishna Katha. Nobody else. So Vidurji, he asks question to Maitreya. He says, Tena eva tu muni sreshta harina yagyamurtina adidaityo hiranyaksho hata ityanu shushruma. So actually we had to shift from there because वहाँ पे AC नहीं चल रहा है. So that's why projector भी नहीं है. So anyways. So he says, Tena eva te muni sreshta, O chief among the sages, Supreme Lord Harina, who is Yagya Murti. Who is Yagya Murti? Last time we discussed. Lord Varaha is called as Yagya Murti. Why? Because his form is the embodiment of all the sacrifices. And last chapter we discussed how every limb of Lord Varaha's body is compared to a particular ingredient of Yagya. So here is described as Harina Yagya Murtina. He is Yagya Murti. So how Adi Daitya? Adi Daitya means original demon. So Hiranyaksha was the original demon. Adi Daityo Hiranyaksha. So we have heard that Varahadev killed Hiranyaksha. And he says, I have heard in disciplic succession. Anushushruma. So we have not just heard from anywhere. I have heard from proper resources that Hiranyaksha was killed by Varahadev. May I know the reason? What was the reason why Varahadev killed Hiranyaksha? And while the Lord was lifting earth, why Hiranyaksha was killed by Varahadev? And then he says, Shraddadhanaya Bhaktaya Bruhi Tajjanma Vistaram. He says, Shraddadhanaya Bhaktaya. We are faithful. That is the qualification to hear Hari Katha. If we are not faithful, then as Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Agyascha Ashraddadhanascha Samshayatma Vinashyati. If somebody is ignorant, faithless, and doubting, he'll be destroyed. So the only qualification to hear Hari Katha is Shraddadhanaya. We should have that faith. So therefore he says, I am faithful. Bruhi, please tell me this pastime, Tat Janma Vistaram, please tell me about the birth of these demons and why Lord killed Hiranyaksha. Because Rishena Tripyati Manaha, because I am not satisfied. Please tell me more about this very, very interesting pastime, because my mind is inquisitive. Param Kautuhalam Hime. I am really inquisitive. Please tell me more about this pastime of Varahadev killing Hiranyaksha. So Prabhupada writes, one who is actually faithful and inquisitive is qualified to hear the pastimes of the Lord. So two qualifications, faithful and inquisitive. We should be inquiring and we should have that faith that the person is speaking in parampara. As Prabhupada writes in Bhagavad Gita 4.34, Tadvidhi Pranipatena verse, there he says, absurd inquiries and blind following is condemned. You should not ask any questions. Only questions which are pertaining to the spiritual subject matter. Not any question. Just like if, one time we had put a question answer booth in Kumbh Mela. So people were coming asking, Maharaj, meri patni gum ho gayi hai, kahan milegi? That is not a question to be asked. When you approach a saintly person, you should ask, Keyami kene amare jare tapatre. As Sanatana Goswami says, who am I? Why I am suffering in this world? So therefore Prabhupada writes, faithful and inquisitive. So this combination of good speaker, good hearer, and good subject matter, that is very important. Tanno bhavan vai bhagavat pradhano mahattamaikanta parayanasya harerudaram charitam vishuddham shushrushatam no vitanotu vidwan. In 18th chapter, first canto, the sages of Naimisharan, they are praying to requesting Suta Goswami. They are saying that you are the best of the devotees. You are Bhagavat Pradhan. And we are eager to hear. And the subject matter is Krishna Katha. So this is a best combination. A Bhagavat Pradhan, a devotee of the Lord who is eager to speak, and the devotee of the Lord who is eager to hear. And the subject matter is Krishna Katha. So therefore, Parikshit Maharaj is asking about all these things with eagerness. So when we serve and when we study, that makes one steady in devotional service. Service and study, not just sitting and reading whole day and not doing anything. That is not the purpose of studying Bhagavatam. Studying scriptures means we have to serve also. We can, ज़्यादा हो गया ना इससे? Or it's okay? It is too cold? It's okay na? Okay. So Vidurji, he is looking here not for information, he is looking for transformation. And therefore he wants to understand all these wonderful pastimes of the Lord. So therefore spiritual curiosity is important. In all the stages of our spiritual life, we should be inquisitive. And we have, one devotee who asks questions in every class. Whenever Maharaj gives a class, Prabhuji asks a question. I'll not name it. I was hearing 1988 or 89 ka lecture. There also, everybody knows Anandandan Prabhu. He was asking question. And Maharaj said, we should write a book on Anand Vrindavan Prabhu's questions. So that is the inquisitiveness, that is eagerness to advance in Krishna consciousness. But Prabhupada writes, if you are just curious and we are not serving, then it becomes boring. So one should be inquisitive and at the same time we should have that service attitude. So Maitreya, when he hears this, he congratulates Vidura. Sadhu Vira Tvaya Prishtam Avatar Katha Hare Yatvam Prichasi Martyana Mrityupasha Vishatani. So he says, Sadhu Vira. He calls Vidura as a Vira. He calls Vidura as a warrior. Sadhu Vira. What a wonderful question you have asked. Because Avatar Katha Hare. This is pertaining to the incarnation of the Lord. So any inquiry done in relation with the Lord, that is a wonderful inquiry. Because Yatvam Prichasi Martyanam. This is for the benefit of all those who are about to die. That means it is for whom? It is for everyone. Because everyone is about to die. Nobody can say, I am not dying, I will not die. Yudhishthira Maharaj, he asks, he was asked a question by Akshay. What is the most wonderful thing in this world? So what did he say?
Everybody knows that they are going to die still.
He says, Ahani ahani bhutani gachanti ha yamalayam sheshasthavaram icchanti kimascharyam atapparam. Every second people are dying, but those who are surviving, they think I will not die or I will not die now. मरेंगे लेकिन अभी समय है, time है, So he says, it is beneficial for everyone who is destined to die. And Prabhupada writes, why Vidura is called as warrior here, not warrior, warrior. Because Vidura belonged to a Kuru dynasty and he was anxious to hear the chivalrous pastimes of the Lord. That's why he's called as Veera. And one more understanding. Why he is called as Veera? Because this pastime can cut the knots of birth and death. That is true courage. True courage means to be eager to come out of the cycle of birth and death. That requires lots of courage. That's why very few people come to actual spiritual life. For most of the people, spiritual life means वो प्रसाद के ऊपर नींबू. It increases the flavor. मैं मंदिर भी जाता हूँ, मैं मूवी भी जाता हूँ, बाहर भी जाता हूँ, मंदिर भी जाता हूँ. You know? So that is the understanding of spirituality for many people. But actual courage means to be ready to cut off the cycle of birth and death. So Prabhupada writes that devotee has no taste for hearing anything mundane. Satamayam sarabhritam nisargo yadarthvani shruti chetasamapi pratikshanam navyavadachyutasya yat striya vitanam iva sadhu varta. Just like materialists, they are attached to the topics of opposite gender. Similarly, devotees are attached to topics of Krishna. They are seekers of essence. They take essence of Krishna Katha wherever they go. So that is how the devotees are. So therefore, one who takes delight in hearing the war topics of the Lord, that is called as Veera. So now, he gives an example. Maitreya Muni gives example. He says that this katha can cut off the cycle of birth and death, mrityu pasha vishatani. And he gives an example of Dhruva. Dhruva, when Vaikuntha Viman came, so Dhruva, so death personified came and he offered his obeisances to Dhruva and requested, please give up your body. You cannot go in this body to the spiritual world. So Dhruva, what he did? He stepped on the head of death personified and climbed the plane in the self-same body. So that is the power of a devotee. So therefore, this is the proof that anybody who hears the topics of the Lord gets delivered from the cycle of birth and death. Even death personified bows down and requests the devotee, please give up your body. Yeah. And that's how Dhruva, he went back. So Maitreya says, the question which you have asked, I heard this narration from Brahmaji as he was speaking to the Devatas. And that's how he starts the story of why Varahadev killed Hiranyaksha. So, to describe this story, he first described the topic of birth of Hiranyaksha. So, the speakers, they have this habit, piche se aur shuru karenge, So he goes back. First, he will describe the birth of Hiranyaksha. And then subsequently, the further chapters will come where the actual fight happens between Varahadev and Hiranyaksha. So that this story continues in this whole chapter. One day, Diti, the wife of Kashyap Muni, she was afflicted with lust. And she approached him at a wrong time. As Kashyap Muni was sitting in the sacrificial arena, doing his yajna in the evening time. And he was in samadhi practically. And this time, Diti goes and approaches Kashyap Muni. So it is described by Chakravarti Thakur that the desire to enjoy the things of this world puts one in distress. And the classic example of this is this story. Whenever a person wants to enjoy a particular thing in a wrong time, in a wrong place, in wrong consciousness, the result is suffering. Suffering from oneself, suffering for oneself, and suffering for others. And that is what happened here. So Diti, she approached Kashyap Muni at a wrong time. And when a person is overwhelmed with lust, he becomes completely shameless. That person becomes shameless. He forgets all the circumstances. We know the story of Yayati. He was so overwhelmed, He begged his own sons that please exchange youth. I have not completed my desires. My desires are still remaining. So the problem with the lust is, a diabetic patient and a lust patient, there is a difference. What is the difference? A diabetes patient has an experience of good health. Earlier he was healthy, now he has become diabetic. So you can see the difference. If I'll become healthy, what will be the situation? But the problem with us, we are afflicted with this lust. The calm Agni is burning. We have not experienced good health in millions of lifetimes. That's why we don't understand what is good health. And that's why people, they think, oh, is it bad? It is good. The snake of lust has bitten every one of us. Manasi jafani jushte, labda patosmi dushte, timere gahana rupe, hanta sansara kupe, ajit nikhil raksha, hetu sansara daksha, upanaya mama haste, bhakti rajju namaste. Very beautiful verse comes in Padyavali, where Rupa Goswami is describing our condition. Manasija, that which is born from the mind. What is that? The lust. The snake of lust has bitten each and every living entity in this world. Manasija fani jushte, the fangs, the hooded snake has bitten. And what has happened now? We have fallen in this deep dark well of material world. Labdapatosmi dushte, and here it is all dark. Timeru gahana rupe. So in this deep dark well of material existence, Krishna has sent a rope of devotional service. Bhakti Rajju, Rajju means the rope. So the Bhakti Rajju has come. So now we have to catch hold of it. One time Srila Prabhupada was giving a class and a devotee came and said, Prabhupada, please give me your mercy so that I can follow your instructions. Prabhupada said, my mercy is that I have given you instructions. Now you have to follow. If somebody is fallen in the well and then a rope is given to him, he cannot say, let my fingers curl around the rope. He has to catch hold of that rope himself. So that's how we don't even realize that what is a healthy state. But by the mercy of devotees, at least we have understood theoretically that there is some state which is free from lust. So Diti, overwhelmed with lust, she goes and she gives 6 reasons why this is the right time for union. She says, Cupid is taking his arrows and he is tormenting me, and I am become like a mad elephant who is troubling a banana tree. So now this Kashyap Muni was sitting with his eyes closed. So she could not do anything with her body or eyes because he was sitting with his eyes closed. So she starts speaking very loudly so that he can hear. And Kashyap Muni, he may say, why have you given up all your shyness? This is not the right time. This is not the right way. She says, well, I am like a banana tree attacked by an elephant. So she says, Diti addresses Kashyap as Vidwan. He says, you are most intelligent. You are aware of everything. Please understand that I am afflicted with lust. And therefore, I have lost all my intelligence. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Avritam jnanametena jnanino nityavairina kamarupena kaunteya dushpurena analena cha. Avritam jnana. This lust covers the ignorance. Covers the knowledge. Avritam jnanam. Jnana gets covered. And therefore, we don't understand what is right, what is wrong. So in terms of identity, in terms of strategy, and in terms of longevity, lust is the worst enemy. So identity means a person who is afflicted with lust thinks that this is not my enemy, this is my friend. He identifies him as the lust as friend. And since when the lust is our enemy? Eternally. Longevity is eternal enemy. And when lust attacks, lust uses our own forces to conquer us. So that's what has happened to Diti. So she says, I am feeling envious of my co-wives. She says, you should be kind to everyone. You have given sons to all my sisters. You have not given any son to me. So actually, Daksha, he had 60 daughters. The story comes in the
16. It was 16.
60. He had 60 daughters. And the story comes when, in the, I think, 9th canto or 8th, this Haryashwas and Shavalashwas, the sons of Daksha, they went to do tapasya, and Narad Muni made all of them brahmacharis. 10,000 brahmacharis in one go. Then Daksha created another 1,000. They were called as Shavalashwas. Narad Muni made them also brahmacharis. So Daksha became so angry. He said, whenever I'm creating, this Narad Muni is going and doing preaching. This time I'll create daughters. Narad Muni will not go in girls' hostel and do preaching. So he created 60 daughters. And these 60 daughters were given to various sages. So 10 daughters he gave to Yamraj. 13 daughters he gave to Kashyap Muni. 27 he gave to Moon God. And 2 he gave to Agni and some few more people. So that's how she's saying that, all my other sisters, they have children and you are not giving me any children. So Prabhupada clarifies that she was not afflicted by sex desire. She wanted son. She wanted a child. And there Prabhupada describes how dharma aviruddha bhuteshu kamosmi, any sex life which is not against the religious principles is bona fide. So therefore, she becomes very envious. And she says, I can't see the opulence of others. So this is very interesting, very important. A leader, when he acts partially, he brings out the bad part or bad side of others. So it was the responsibility of Kashyap Muni to give, sons or children to Diti also. But he didn't do that. So therefore, Diti has become envious. And the envy led to lust. Same thing happened with Uttanpad. He neglected Dhruva because he was more affectionate to his second wife, Suruchi. Same happened with Chitraketu's wives. When this was the mother, Kritadyuti, when she got a child, naturally Chitraketu became more, affectionate, and he started giving more time to Kritadyuti. And as a result, he was the original Crorepati, He had 1 crore wives. All the other ladies, they were from good homes, If a king is marrying somebody, he'll not marry anyone. So they were all educated, cultured, but still they became envious. Because Chitraketu started behaving partially. So therefore she is saying that, you have not given me any children. And then she says that if you give me a bona fide, if you give me a qualified child, then your fame will increase. And if you will become famous, then I'll also become famous. So she says, 3 things will happen if you give me child. You will become famous, then I will become famous. And it is our duty to give children so that our dynasty may continue. So Prabhupada gives a very wonderful purport. He never leaves a chance to describe what is the purpose of human form of life. Who is qualified to become a mother, a father? And he quotes a verse, Guru na sasyat, Swajano na sasyat, Pita na sasyat, Pati na sasyat. Nobody is qualified to become a father, mother, guru, teacher, if he cannot deliver his subordinate from the cycle of birth and death. What is the use of, Prabhupada was very strong sometimes. What is the use of procreating like cats and dogs, Prabhupada would say many times. And Prabhupada writes in this purport also that it is not about overpopulation. It is about what population is doing. So if population is behaving in a adharmic way, then they become burden on Mother Earth. So then she says, actually, I was attracted to you even before our marriage. That's why when my father, he was arranging our marriage, then he understood that we have all of us, we were attracted to you. So we all have married you and you have given children to all my sisters and you have not given children to me. So that's how she is pleading, please give me also a child. So Prabhupada writes, it appears that free selection of a husband was allowed by the father, but not by free association. So a girl cannot go out herself and select the, husband. But if she has some likings, then she can tell the father. Of course, pehle ke zamane ki baat hai. So that was allowed. And that's how Kashyap Muni, Daksha was taking into consideration that, okay, my daughters are attracted to this sage, I'll marry her to this personality. And then, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he describes, actually Vallabhacharya, he describes a wonderful, insight. So she is using the word that my father Daksha is very capable and he has given me to you in marriage. Why she's saying this? She says, my father is very powerful. Daksha is very powerful. And if you don't accept my prayer, you know what will happen? My father had cursed moon god in the past. He may curse you also. So better fulfill my desires. That is indirect way, she's saying. And then she says, my father is Daksha. Daksha means he is very expert in black magic also. So if you don't satisfy my desires, he may use black magic also. But then she says, no, but he'll not sink down so low. So that is the conversation going on. So she says, all of us 13 daughters, 13 sisters, we had same disposition. All of them have children. Why I am only without child? Please do something. And then Kashyapa says, how can you say that you are equal in character to me? You are attempting to break my trance in a wrong time. I am sitting in the evening time and doing my sacrifice and you are disturbing me. She says, because I am distressed. And she says that, oh, lotus-eyed one. So she is calling her husband that please fulfill my desires, because a great person should not neglect the desire of a person who is in distress. So Prabhupada writes, Diti knew very well that her request may be rejected because it was untimely. So therefore she's saying it is emergency now. And therefore in emergency situation, there is no consideration of time, place and situation. And Diti is aware of this, that I am approaching Kashyapa at a wrong time. And therefore she is quoting scriptures also. That scriptures say that a person who is distressed, he should be always given protection, irrespective of the time and situation. That is the nature of justification. When we have done something wrong, we always have all our quotes. Prabhupada has given quotations for everything. And whatever you want to justify, you will find one example, one pastime of Prabhupada. So therefore, she is trying to justify. And people who want to enjoy sense gratification, and then they feel guilty. Oh, I have done it wrong. And then to cover up the guilt, they justify it by presenting some scriptural quotations. But devotees, they never justify. They take the responsibility. Okay, this is my fault. I have done this mistake. So therefore, it is my responsibility. So secondly, we have to understand that many times when we are under the modes some things may look very urgent, although they are not. Just like Diti is thinking it is urgency. And what has happened? She has gone away from the moral principles, dharmic principles. So sometimes when we are afflicted by the modes of nature, then we may tend to go away from the religious principles or devotional principles. So therefore, the more we are rooted in spiritual life, the more we are stable in our devotional practices, the more we will be able to resist the temptations. And it is not a day or 2 days job. It is a long, consistent practice of devotional services required. So Kashyapa, Prabhupada writes, he was also not very strong enough. So what he did, he just tried to pacify Diti by speaking some sweet words. He didn't chastise her. Prabhupada writes, he would have just chastised her and the story would have been over. But he was also, too much overwhelmed by all this. So he did not speak strong words. So Kashyapa, now he is responding. So he says that, so in the 16th verse, Maitreya Muni continues that he says, "O hero Vidura," again he is calling Vidura as hero. He says, Diti, she was afflicted by lust and therefore she was speaking a lot. And Kashyapa, he wanted to pacify her. Why he is called as hero again? Vidura is called as hero because he had that strength and power of devotional service, Vidura. That's why he is called as hero. Kashyapa was not a devotee, he was an impersonalist. In this situation, at this time, he was an impersonalist. So therefore, he was weak-hearted. And Prabhupada writes,
how is it possible that in one situation he's impersonalist and in another where he's asking to worship Lord Vishnu to...
But it will come. It will come in some time. So Kashyapa, Prabhupada writes that he was inclined to impersonal worship. Therefore, he could not resist the temptation of lust. That is the difference between a devotee and a impersonalist. Etadishanamishasya prakriti-sthopi tadgunaihi na yujyate sadatmasthai yatha buddhi tadashraya. Just like Lord never comes under the control of the modes, similarly, the devotees of the Lord also never comes under the control. And the example is Haridas Thakur. Maya Devi personified came to test Haridas Thakur. Who can resist the temptations of Maya Devi personified? Just the desire of Maya Devi sufficient to destroy a devotee, a practitioner. So Sakshat Maya Devi is coming and she is saying, she also, just like Diti is requesting Kardam Muni that it is a duty of saintly people to accept and give shelter to a distressed person. Maya Devi is also speaking the same words. More angikar karo hoya saday, dine daya karo ei sadhu swabhav hai. It is a swabhav of saintly people to give mercy to fallen persons like me. And in this way, she started showing all her feminine beauty. Etaboli nana bhava karoe prakash, yahar darshane remunir hoye dhairyanash. Even great sober people could fall down, but Haridas Thakur was completely equipoised. Nirvikar Haridas. Why? Because he was absorbed in holy names. Krishne nama Vishtamana sada Haridas. Aranye rodit hoila stri bhava prakash. He was absorbed in chanting. So Prabhupada writes about him that this Kardam Muni, he was an impersonalist. Kashyap Muni was impersonalist. Not Kardam, sorry. Kashyap Muni was an impersonalist. So therefore, he could not resist the temptations of Diti. And therefore, he just wanted to pacify her with sweet words. And of course, as you asked, because every person goes through, transformation in his life or her life. Somebody may be a devotee, impersonalist now, but he may become a devotee later. So in sixth canto, from third canto to sixth canto, he had become a devotee. Sixth canto mein he is a devotee. That's why he has given this Pumsavana Vrata to Diti. Again, there also Diti, she tells, I want a son who will kill Indra. So Kashyapa, he speaks for a long time so that, the twilight may pass. And he is just trying to speak so many words so that, okay, that time may pass. So amazingly, he glorifies a wife in wonderful words, and he gives 5 reasons. Any wife will become happy hearing all these reasons. So Kashyap is glorifying his wife very royally, and he says, wife is cause of a husband to achieve dharma, artha, kama. And Prabhupada writes, a faithful wife is supposed to cooperate with the husband and provide a comfortable situation so that he can also advance in spiritual life. And Prabhupada writes there, a training of a boy is brahmacharya and training of a girl is chastity. And therefore, he glorifies that because of you, I am able to achieve 3 perfections of life, dharma, artha, and kama. And Vallabhacharya, he writes that when all the objects of prosperity are under the control of a wife, then household is happy and joyful. The lady is controlling the houses, all the wealth of the family, then the household is happy and joyful. But he says he didn't mention moksha. He mentioned only dharma, artha, and kama. Because to attain moksha, you have to be ultimately detached from wife. And then he says, wife is like a boat which can help one cross over the ocean of birth and death. So actually says, with the wife, one can conquer over the desires. And there Prabhupada writes about the duties of a grihastha. He says, there are 3 orders of life, brahmachari, vanaprastha, and sannyas. They are all dependent on grihasthas. So a person in grihastha life, they may have some facilities for enjoyment, but their responsibility is they have to take care of the other 3 sections. At the same time, the renounced order, they may get good facilities, just like, renounced order, they may go to various grihasthas' house and eat nice food, nice prasad. But what is the responsibility? They have to preach this message. One time, I think I told this, one time we had gone to one devotee's house, one of our brahmacharis, and they were South Indian. So mother was serving, हमारे ब्रह्मचारी की माँ से सर्विंग कर रही हैं और 4-5 brahmacharis are sitting, they're eating South Indian, and she wants to speak in Hindi. और लीजिए, शर्माइए मत. So she says, खाओ खाओ, शर्म नहीं है, खाओ खाओ. Everybody is thinking, अभी खाएं कि नहीं खाएं, So Prabhupada writes that for renounced order, it is a duty of a renounced order to preach this Krishna consciousness, and they are preaching on behalf of the Lord. So in Nectar of Devotion also Prabhupada writes that when grihasthas, they do their service, they also advance equally as renounced order. There is no difference. So there is a mutual interdependence. One time Radhanath Swami Maharaj was telling, he took some devotees to Vrindavan garden, and in the pond there were fishes. Pond in Vrindavan garden. So he was telling the fishes, they are like brahmacharis or renounced order. And the pond, the water is like the, grihastha order. Because the grihasthas are there, they are supplying all the necessities. That's why the fish is surviving. And what is the job of a fish? To clean the pond. Whenever some dirty things enter the pond, they eat it. So that's how there is a mutual cooperation between grihasthas and the renounced order of life. It is not that somebody is greater or lower. Both advance equally. So then he continues that, "O respectful one, wife is called a better half, and a husband shares all her auspicious activities with the wife. And so that wife takes care of all the responsibilities of the household things, and husband can move around and do his other duties nicely. So that is how, if wife is efficient and favorably disposed, so Vallabhacharya says, then she can take the burden of the whole family, and the husband then can go on doing his other duties. So that is the responsibility of a wife.
It's in Subodhini, Prabhuji.
Shri Subodhini. Yeah. It's not in Subodhini. अपना भागवत सुबोधि में नहीं है.
Prabhuji.
Shri Subodhini. Yes, yes. Vallabhacharya's commentary. Yes, correct. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada writes that when wife is accepted just as a sense gratificatory agency, then as soon as there is break in personal sense gratification, there is divorce. But when both husband and wife, they are working for spiritual advancement, then even if there is some problems, then there will be no divorce. So therefore, Prabhupada writes, marriage is actually a duty performed in mutual cooperation. It is a duty. It is a service. It is cooperation. Otherwise, Bhagavatam says, if Krishna is not in the center, then our house, our graha become kara graha. Tavad ragadayastena tavat kara griham griham yavan mohongri nigado yavan Krishna nate jana. Tavad rag adaya, all the attachments, they are like the thieves. They plunder this house, which is like a kara graha. It is not, kara graha means not a car with a graha. Graha with a car. Karagraha means prison house. Karagraha, the homes become prison house. And the criminals there, they are shackled by the chain of desires. Tavan mohongdi nigado. Nigado means the chain. Moha, attachment, illusion is the chain which binds a person. And then he says, Grahastha ashram is the safest place for a person to be in. And their wife is like the commander of this fortress. Whenever the plunderers attack, the commander protects the fort. So whenever the senses, they attack, they become undisturbed, they become disturbed, then they are protected by the wife. And Prabhupada writes that out of 4 ashramas, Grihastha ashram is the safest. And in this Grihastha ashram, wife is the commander of the fort. The senses are the plunderers. And the king doesn't have to fight personally. The commanders do it. So similarly, the wife can, control the senses. And he says, Prabhupada describes that in other ashrams, in renounced order, the commander is not there. So therefore, it is a personal responsibility to control the senses. So that is how it is described. Then he says, O queen of the home, although we cannot act like you, but he is now royally glorifying. He says, I cannot repay you for whatever you have done, even if I work entire life, even after death. And Prabhupada writes, so much glorification of a woman by her husband indicates that he is henpecked. Or he is talking jokingly, So he says, Kashyapa meant that householders living with wives, they may enjoy heavenly blessings, and at the same time they have no fear of falling down to hell, because they will never break the principles. But in renounced order of life, if somebody breaks the principles, have some illicit relationships, then they'll go to hell. That's how the householder life is safest life, he says. And then after saying all this, he says, I will definitely satisfy your desire, but just allow this muhurta to pass. 48 minutes ruk jao bas, One murta is 48 minutes. And he says, what will happen if you don't stop? It will lead to infamy. He says, although it is not possible to repay you, I will fulfill your desire. Just wait for a few seconds. She says, nothing doing. I cannot wait. So then Lord Shiva, Kashyap Muni now frightens her. He says, what is happening at this time? Esha ghoratama vela ghoranam ghor darshana charanti yasyam bhutani bhuteshanu charanihi. At this time, all the ghosts and all the horrible looking creatures, they are moving with Lord Shiva. Ghor Tamavela, it is a very inauspicious time. And Ghor Darshan, all the horrible beings are moving here along with their Lord, that is Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva always travels at this time, riding on this Nandi bull. Evening time. And Prabhupada describes what is a ghost. Ghost means no material body, no physical body. And he says, people when they are frustrated with the, so many things which are happening, they commit suicide and they become ghosts. Lord Shiva is very kind to ghosts. Because he is so very merciful, he wants to give them a body because they don't have a body also. So therefore, at this time, he is moving with all the associates, ready to put them in the wombs of a woman who are engaging in all this inauspicious, sexual intercourse at a wrong time. So therefore, he says, please be very careful. Lord Shiva is moving around with his associates. He has 3 eyes. And he is not an ordinary person. He is your relative. He is your brother-in-law. So therefore, do you have some shame? Your brother-in-law is right there and you want to, do all this inauspicious thing? Diti says, nobody will see. He says, Shiva has 3 eyes. Sun, moon, and fire. You cannot hide from him anything. And he is your brother-in-law. So please understand that brother-in-law means like brother only. He is my brother. So don't you feel shy behaving like this in front of brother? She says, I bid farewell to shyness. And she says, even you should not be afraid. Lord Shiva is will forgive us. He is he asks Ashutosh, that also comes. And she says, actually, he is your relative, right? He will not do any harm. Don't worry. So Lord Shiva, so Kashyap says, he does not consider anyone his relative. Don't be in this illusion. For him, there is nobody favorable, nobody abominable. He punishes anyone who does wrong things. So don't expect favor from him. Prabhupada writes, Lord Shiva is so great that although entire material nature is ready to serve him, Parvati, personified, but still, he never makes a home for himself. He never tells Parvati, ek ghar bana do. Now, there is a story, right? We all know. When Lord Shiva got married to Parvati, she said, at least ek ghar to banao, where we'll stay. So he made a nice home and he invited all the Brahmanas for home, housewarming ceremony. So all the Brahmanas came and it was a nice festival, and then he was giving charity to everyone. So all the charity was gone and then one Brahmana was remaining. So he donated his own house only. Again on the tree, under a tree. So that's how Prabhupada writes that he does not even use her own wife, his own wife. He didn't tell Parvati, make a nice home for him. That is the glory of Lord Shiva. So please don't think that he will be, partial to us. He's equal. And although he dresses like a devil, but he is the greatest of a personality. Only foolish and unintelligent people, they think that, he's, an ordinary person. So therefore, please be very careful. So she may say that, okay, some people say that, Lord Shiva behaves like a ghost because he was cursed by Daksha. In the fourth canto, the story comes, Daksha curses Lord Shiva because he didn't get up. So Kashyap Muni removes that doubt. He says, do you know who is Lord Shiva? Even Brahma worships Lord Shiva. So what to speak of anyone else? All the rules made by Lord Shiva are followed by everyone. So he had made rules. He has made rule that we should not procreate during evening time. So therefore, please wait for some time. Even after hearing all this, Diti, she didn't listen. And she forced Kashyapa for union, and Kashyapa gives in. So that's how Chakravarti Thakur writes that lust devours all the discrimination power. So that is the power of lust. And Prabhupada writes that Haridas Thakur was also approached by a public prostitute. He could resist the temptations. And he was so powerful that this prostitute became a greatest of the devotee. Prasiddha Vaishnavi Hoila Parama Mahanti Bada Bada Vaishnava Tara Darshane Teyanti. She became such a great devotee that many big devotees would come for her darshan. That is the power of a devotee. But Kashyapa was not a devotee that time. So therefore he gave into this. And then Kashyapa, after having this union, he takes bath and sits to do Gayatri. And then now Diti realizes that she has done a mistake and she is now repenting. So this is a natural way of a devotee when a devotee is just progressing in the sadhana bhakti. Many times we will fall down, but repentance is most important. When we repent for our mistakes, when we repent for our sinful activities, then Krishna forgives us. Jata Shraddho Matkathasu Nirvinna Sarva Karmasu Veda Dukkhatmakan Kaman Parityagopyanishwaraha Tato Bhajet Mam Prita Shraddhalu Dhrida Nishchayaha Jushamanascha Tan Kaman Dukkho Darkam Shagarhayan. So Krishna is telling this to Uddhava. He says, oh Uddhava, many times we think, does Krishna know what all I am going through? Itna problem hai, itna tapasya chal raha hai. So many things are happening. Kaisa मैं chanting कर रहा हूँ? Does Krishna know? Krishna knows all our struggles. He says, my devotee, his faith has risen in my pastimes. He has understood that sense gratification leads to misery. Still, he cannot give it up. Parityago api anishwaraha. Then what he does? Tato bhajet mam prita. Still he worships me with love, shraddhalu with shraddha, and dridnishya with determination. These three things are important: love, faith, and determination. We may fall down many times, just like a boxing match. A person is not declared defeated unless he gets up, unless he refuses to get up. If you get up again, then you are not defeated. So all the while, Jushamanasya tan kaman dukkho darkamsha garhayan. He repents for his sinful activities. So now Kashyapa, he repents. Diti, she repents. And she says, oh my dear Brahmana, please kindly see that my embryo is not killed by Lord Shiva. Because she is very fearful, like any mother. She says, please show mercy. Lord Shiva is Rudra. He can make one cry, and he is Ashutosh also. He gets pleased very easily. And Lord Shiva he knows that I have done a mistake. So I cannot directly pray to Lord Shiva now. So if you pray, then Lord Shiva will hear my prayer and he will not kill this child. And then she offers beautiful prayers. Namo Rudraya Mahate Deva Yograya Miduse Shivaya Nasta Dandaya Dhrita Dandaya Manyave. She says, I offer my obeisances to Lord Shiva, who is very ferocious. At the same time, he fulfills all the desires. He is all auspicious. So she is very cleverly offering prayers. She says, Lord Shiva is called as Rudra. He can make me cry, but he can also stop my crying. He is great personality. He is Mahate. And therefore, why he should take care of, fault of a small lady like me? He should forgive my sinful activity. And therefore, please pray to Lord Shiva. And then she says that actually he is my, brother-in-law. So she says three reasons why Lord Shiva should forgive her. She says first, Lord Shiva is the husband of her sister. And Lord Shiva is also, having a wife. She knows the faults of a woman, right? So she should also forgive me. So therefore, he is full of mercy. So please request Lord Shiva. So Kashyap Muni, hearing all this, he says that, oh Diti, you had four faults. Your mind was polluted, time was not proper, you didn't follow the scriptures, and you disrespected the devatas. Because of this, everything was inauspicious. And therefore, whatever has been done, it is all inauspicious. Prabhupada writes in previous times, there were only two big demons which were created because of a, illicit act at wrong time. But now, so many unwanted children are being created. Kali Yuga is full of all these things. So therefore, Prabhupada writes, only Krishna consciousness movement is the hope for humanity. So therefore, Kashyapa says, because all these things were inauspicious, you will have two sons, and they will be the greatest of the demons. They will destroy all the world, they will torture people, they will kill innocent living entities, they will disrespect the devatas, but they will be killed by Lord himself. So Diti, when she hears this, what do you think she should be? Happy or sad?
Both.
She was happy. She says, it is very good that my sons will be killed by Supreme Lord, because anybody who is killed by the Lord, he gets liberated. But please make sure that they are not killed by Brahmana's wrath. Because if somebody is cursed by a devotee, there is no hope for him. If Lord, wants to kill somebody, still there is hope. But if a devotee, doesn't look at that person or neglects a person, there is no hope for that devotee, that person. So therefore, in the path of Krishna consciousness, devotees are our only hope. Even if Lord forgets us, if devotee thinks, nahi, nahi, isko thoda kripa dete hain, then we'll be saved. So that's how Diti, she was happy. And then she says, please, make sure that my children are not killed by Brahmana's curse. And then Kashyap Muni says, well, your two sons will be your greatest of the demons, but your grandson will be great devotee. Because you are lamenting, because you are repenting, and you are humble. Therefore, your grandson will be a great devotee of the Lord. And Kashyap Muni describes the qualities of Prahlad Maharaj. That this personality, Prahlad, he will please the entire universe because he will please the Lord. So when the Lord is pleased, entire universe is pleased. And he will be a great devotee. Savai Mahabhagavato Mahatma Mahanubhavo Mahatam Mahishtaha Pravridya Bhaktya Hi Anubhavita Shaye Niveshya Vaikunthamimaham Vihasyati. He says, your grandson will be a Mahabhagavat Mahatma, and he will spread his influence all over the universe by his devotional service. Ultimately, he will go back to the Vaikuntha. And he will be full of wonderful qualities. Alampata, Shildhara, Gunakara. He says he'll be full of wonderful qualities. He'll be always happy and joyful, and he will have no enemies. And he will see the Lord internally and externally. And in this way, Maitreya Muni, he ends the discussion by telling that, hearing all this, Diti, she was pleased in her mind. So that's the end of this chapter. We'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantarashram Bhagavatam ki jai. Any questions anybody has?
What about other demons? They are also not Diti's sons.
Sorry?
Other demons are not Diti's sons.
They are Diti's sons, but the descendants, they may be descendants of Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, like that. Diti, from Ditis comes Daitya, from Aditi comes Adityas, all the expansions of Vishnu. Okay.
I just wanted to that is very stupid. Still, when Guru Maharaj puts his leg on the head of the Sonic and always so
We'll just stop the meeting. And so we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.